Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm so honored to have back on the show for a second time Satanic ritual abuse, MKUltra mind control, covert experimentation, and organized abuse survivor, whistleblower, and overcomer, independent film producer, artist and painter, writer, singer and songwriter, spiritual conduit and healer, and a woman who transformed the unspeakable into a testament of the soul's unyielding sovereignty, Magnolia Dove. A little bit about Magnolia Dove if you guys missed her first testimony episode, if you're new here, or if you just need a quick recap. Born in New York City with a rare AB positive bloodline and deep roots in survival, Magnolia entered the world already marked. Her maternal grandmother was a Holocaust survivor from Hungary, arriving in America with little more than resilience and quiet strength. Her father's side carried echoes of Transylvanian Roma heritage, psychic sensitivity woven into the blood. Raised as an only child in the idyllic yet deceptive beauty of East Hampton in the Hamptons, Magnolia navigated a loving but fractured home. Her father's cocaine addiction, family dysfunction, and the early dissociation that veiled her youngest memories. What should have been a childhood of safety became, from the tender age of 5, a battlefield of unimaginable horror. Ensnared by perpetrators connected to MKUltra, Stargate, a satanic coven known as the Sisters of Darkness, and even her best friend's parents linked to Warner Brothers and Hollywood elite circles, Magnolia endured routine ritual abuse and programming. These traumas, layered with near-death experiences, sought to shatter her spirit and install unbreakable compartments of control. Yet even in the darkest programming sessions, she glimpsed divine intervention, angelic counsel, a profound connection to Yeshua, and moments of elevated consciousness sustained her. The abuse began to loosen its daily grip around age 9, though sporadic access continued. Magnolia buried the memories deep, excelling outwardly in gifted programs, while her inner world remained compartmentalized. Then, just over a decade ago, a single chilling recollection, a perpetrator's Russian roulette threat, unlocked a flood of memories. Piece by agonizing piece, the truth emerged. What followed was not defeat, but a fierce reclamation. Magnolia's healing journey has been neither linear nor conventional. Traditional systems offered surface-level support at best. Through holistic practices, plant medicines, inner child work, and most powerfully, a direct living relationship with Yeshua, she integrated memories, confronted implanted guilt and shame, and stepped into her wholeness. She faced the impossible, the knowledge that adults she trusted had betrayed her, that she had been forced into unthinkable acts under duress, and that layers of programming still echoed in her nervous system. Yet she refused to remain fractured. Today, with many memories reclaimed and others held in curious trust, Magnolia radiates vibrant life. She's not broken, she's sovereign. As a master artist and creator, Magnolia turns pain into profound beauty. Her paintings, songs, and writings serve as bridges between worlds, ancient wisdom meeting urgent truth. As a healer and spiritual conduit, she offers deliverance, compassionate guidance, and energetic restoration rooted in the Holy Spirit. She creates sacred sanctuary for fellow survivors of ritual abuse, mind control, and complex trauma, walking beside them with the empathy only one who has crossed the abyss can offer. Her voice, soft yet unshakable, carries the weight of lived testimony in the lightness of hard-won freedom. Magnolia is more than a survivor. She's a warrior of light, a spiritual alchemist, and a living invitation to every wounded soul. Your story does not end in the dark. Through her courage, she fills memory gaps for others, validates the disbelieved, and proves that even the most heinous programming cannot override the soul's unyielding sovereignty. She embodies the truth that light is stronger, that redemption is possible, and that heaven can be brought to earth, one reclaimed heart at a time. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming back today's guest of honor, voice for the voiceless, walking miracle, survivor, overcomer, and thriver, educator, creative, anti-child abuse and survivor advocate, spiritual warrior and woman of God, my dear friend, and the brightest light in the darkness, the one, the only, Magnolia Dove. Magnolia, it is so good to have you back. I'm so happy to do a part 2 with you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me and for, again, that amazing introduction. I'm always just like, yeah.
You're so
Mhm.
deserving of
Thank
it.
you.
You're welcome. I'm excited to have you back. Last time we
Thank
had a jam-packed episode, and as people can tell from the intro, there was no shortage of information that you gave. But I think what people don't realize is we really just scratched the surface of your story. We got into a lot of the cult abuse, a lot of your family history. And for people who missed that one, I'm going to have that episode down in the show notes, and definitely recommend you guys listen to it before or after this episode. But
Yeah.
today we're going to go on a different journey. We're going to talk about some things that we didn't get to last time that you simply alluded to. And I'm really excited for that. And I'm just really appreciate you putting this together today and for your courage to come on and share this information.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to come back for part 2 and share this with everyone. And, again, fill in more pieces for people because a lot of it is just coming together so tightly. And I feel that this is part of the I don't know, the rectification, I guess, of the world, of the planet, and going back to, like, if we're to bring heaven here on earth, we've had our work cut out for us. And I feel like this truth coming out, sharing this, like, is part of putting that back together and part of the healing uh in a more unified sense.
I completely
Yeah.
agree. And you're such a big part of that. And before we get into sharing about your testimony, one other thing people listening might not realize is how close the community is of survivors that are speaking out. And one thing I
Yes.
wanted to do was to honor somebody that you and I both knew and that you were very close to behind the scenes, and that I've
Yes.
covered a lot on this episode, Madison Cups, or Madison Clares.
Yes.
And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about her, and to thank you for being such a wonderful friend to her. I know your friendship meant the world to her and uplifted her. And I
Yeah.
want to honor your friendship here and give you a chance to say anything that you would like to about Madison, since everybody on this channel is familiar with her.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really loved Madison. I knew her for about 2.5 years, I guess, was our time together. And the reason I reached out to her originally was our Warner Brothers connection. Um, and at that point, we were kind of talking to someone that was going to possibly investigate, and we were thinking of a lawsuit at that time, which it didn't quite pan out. Again, those things are hard to prove in for lawsuits, lawsuit purposes. And but then we forged a friendship and we ended up speaking quite a bit, and we met up somewhere in California. uh well, Nevada City, we met up. And we had a beautiful day shopping together, like vintage shopping and just hanging out. And we continued to stay in touch. And I really loved her. I love her. And it is just really shocking. And the way I found out was very shocking because I had spoken to her. The last in-depth phone conversation was end of March, actually. And so we had just, yeah, it was like a 2-hour conversation. And I held a little ceremony of my own saying goodbye. Um, one night by the water near where I live, and I had some flowers and I let them into the water, and I said a prayer for her and spoke to her, and then I saw a shooting star, which, yeah, was really cool. So I felt her presence. And I just also, she was an amazing advocate of survivors. She did so much brave work to put herself out there the way she was, and she was just so proactive and such a strong person, such a strong voice, and I mean, really not a mean bone in her body, and so strong. And to have gone through what she went through at the hands of her own parents, it's like the ultimate betrayal. And I'd also like to say what I think that they are doing now and what they've done with the obituary and some of the harassment and gaslighting with you and your channel and interviews of her. I think it is despicable. I think they are disgusting. And not only did they contribute to her death in one way or another, whether it was accidental or something else, they contributed. And so they have blood on their hands. And, nothing goes unchecked. So, whether they believe in God and heaven and the Holy Spirit or just plain karma, it will not be forgotten. And what they do have the chance to do would be to rectify it by coming out and apologizing for what they have done and not writing an obituary, gaslighting her, and putting it all under the guise of mental illness and an acid trip, at 16 or 17 years old. That's not how acid works. That's just not how it works. And you don't just remember a slew of false memories over a decade later. Sorry. Like, these are real memories. And at some point in time, whether you do it in this life or the next or in the afterlife, like, you will have to fix this.
Amen. And I think too that the interesting thing is they pin the psychosis and this acid trip on Madison, yet Madison has been very clear that her twin sister also disclosed. So is her sister psychotic and schizophrenic too? It's interesting how only Madison gets labeled that, even though, there was more than one disclosure in the family. But either way, I'm
That's
just
right.
really grateful that she had you. I know, like you said, she was so brave. She put her full name out, every single company. There was no censorship with her. Her family's names, full names, addresses, police reports. Like, she was just, all in, and there was no holds bar with her. And it was extremely dangerous, the risk that she took to do that. And ultimately, in one way or another, it did cost her a lot. And, right down to, who wouldn't have mental health issues going through what she did to one degree
Mhm.
or another. And
Mhm.
the gaslighting from society and not being helped after
Mhm.
doing all of that to what she overcame and survived from her family. I mean,
Yes.
we're so lucky that we got to hear her like super sane.
Yeah.
Like you only have to listen to her for 15 seconds to see she's a completely sane person,
Yes.
who
Yes.
went through
Very
insane
sane,
things.
very good natured, very good willed,
She
very
was so smart.
kind. What?
She was so smart for being so
Yeah.
young. I think she was
Oh
like
yeah.
24 whenever you and I met
Yeah.
her. I mean,
Yes.
wise
Yes.
beyond her years.
Yes. She really was. And she was a light to the world. And I just know that she now is in a good place. And she did, I mean, she did her mission. Whether she got to do her mission musically, that part makes me sad because she was a
Mm.
very talented musician. And I know that she wanted more in that, you know, in that avenue in her life. But I know she did like the Dharma, her work of um for humanity in a lot of ways, and she's really the one that um put Pizzagate back on the map on a lot of ways because she had so much inside information about it and was able to expose it the way that she did. And it's a direct link. You can see, like, and you see in the obituary, her father was Brian Cups, like that's who she was naming. He's standing next to Steve Jobs in many their business, whatever they had, food.com, and that online pizza ordering company. Like, you can trace it. This is real. um and she did amazing work exposing it. And I'm grateful that I got to know her. I'm grateful that we both had her. So
I am too, and
yeah.
I'm thankful that during those really hard times, she had friends like you and Kibby Linga and Brooke. She
Yep.
had a good support system despite facing so much opposition from society and that she was going up against every day. So I appreciate you honoring her and taking a moment to bring her up and talk about her. I just want her
Thank
to
you.
remember to be who she was and not the narrative that's trying to be spun about her, and
Yeah.
all of us that actually knew her.
Yeah.
Um, she was just amazing, and there's nothing anybody can do to try to erase that, no matter how hard they try. So,
Yeah.
with that being
Yeah.
said, so last episode, like how I was saying a little bit ago, we talked a lot about the cult abuse that you went through,
Yes.
your family history, and documenting how you were thrown into the fire, quite literally, with the satanic coven that you encountered through a babysitter, nonetheless.
Yeah. Yes.
This episode, I know, is going to be themed a little bit differently. However, you have had a little bit more memory recall since last time, and some other memories come up regarding the cult abuse side. So I wanted to see if
Yes.
maybe you wanted to talk about that, what you
Yes.
remembered, and
Yes,
then
I
we'll move
would.
into and segue into the rest of what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, I would. So, and I just want to say, side note, my dog is snoring in the background.
Aw,
And so that's what the audio might be picking that up. So, um,
I love it.
anyway, um, yep, there she goes. I don't know if you can hear that, but, um, yes. So without like giving location, I live in a very powerful vortex area. It does bring things up. And when, I thought I had most of my memories really, because I did like 14 years of trauma work and all kinds of, plant medicines, energy works, all the things that you've stated. And but this place that I live, it will bring things up energetically when they need to be dealt with. And there was one week where I've been writing a book, and so I've been working on that. And I remembered that because some of my memory work has happened through my dreams. And yeah, I mean, and some of the deprogramming also has happened through dreams. I don't know if I had mentioned in the last interview I had screamed and broken a structure that was part of the MK Ultra, and just things like that. But what I remembered was that about now it would probably be almost 2 years ago, I was having a series of dreams. And I think a lot of people know that sometimes you dream and you'll have one and then it goes to another. And all of a sudden I had this dream vision where I was above my body looking down through the ceiling of a house, which was the same babysitter's house, which was Sharon Einsman. That was her name. She's now deceased, of dementia or semi-natural causes. But what I saw in that dream was that I was looking above myself. I heard a really weird music, almost like a horror movie, and it felt like a spell. It was like showing me this sort of mirage of something. And when I dropped down and looked, I saw myself on a pentagram on the floor in Sharon's kitchen, holding a girl in my arms who had died. And I saw the details of the girl, what she was wearing, what I was wearing. Like, I saw the whole thing, and I saw Sharon and her sister looking on with pleasure, like enjoyment, and I was horrified. And that was the dream. And then I did not look at that until this past fall, where I actually had another fellow survivor who works with SRA people. I don't know if it's safe to say him, but uh, I'll leave it there. I had him help me process the memory, because that's the work really that he does. He just held space. There was no suggestibility. He just held space for me to remember. And what I recalled was, in being finally ready to look at this, was that it was actually a seance sacrifice. Again, I've not looked up any of these terms. These are just things that have come to me in the understanding of from the memory. And so Sharon's sister was present for this, and her husband was deceased, and she wanted to basically bring him back. And in bringing him back, they wanted a virgin sacrifice. And the girl that I think it is, again, in remembering, it's so different in the dream, seeing it, and then going through a session remembering, it's not as vivid. But there was this girl, Desiree, that I knew that her family was, I think they were Amish. And because I just remember playing with her maybe once at her house. My mom had dropped me off, and I remember her saying, a Desiree has a very different lifestyle than you do. they don't have TV. They didn't do lights, like they did candles, like they had a different thing going on. I also remember she she must have been going through violence in her home life because she had stitches on her head that were, do you remember those metal stitches that kind of look like a barrette? And I had remembered saying to her, like, oh, is that a barrette? It was like a butterfly or something like but it was a stitch from, she had a cut or two cuts in her head, like
Mm.
from a gash. And I remember like her saying, no, it's like a boo-boo. And she had two brothers that I saw were bullying her, and like when I did play at her house, I was aware that they were assaulting her on some level. And I it's possible there was sexual assault, and from what I'll explain now, probably there was that. So Desiree went to this neighborhood babysitter, and again, I don't know how many times, and I will assume her family was a part of this if this is how this happened. And they wanted this virgin sacrifice, and there was me and this other girl, Stacy. I don't know her last name. I can see her face. She was about 2 years older than me and would boss me around a lot at the babysitter. And she was the first one that I feel like I learned the word shut up from, because they would lock us into the basement sometimes and I'd be screaming and she'd be like, shut up, shut up, shut up. Like you're gonna make it worse. And she was kind of my like child handler in those scenarios, I would say. And what I remember is they wanted this sacrifice, and they also were, I was aware that they did not want the physical blood on their hands, so that's part of why they want, it wasn't just about corrupting us and handling and training us. It was also like the karma is less, or so they think, by having someone else do the act. And so they had this girl Desiree there. I believe they drugged her with candy or something. They got something where she was not lucid. And she was laying on this sigil, which I believe was a pentagram. And they were they well they threatened, like, if you don't do this, it's your mom. So who are you going to choose? Um, and basically what I recalled in this session was that Stacy and I were supposed to strangle her. And I was pretending to strangle her, actually. So I was like, I had my hands there at the neck, but I was like, if I don't know how to say this, like, without, it's like if you're making something look like you're doing it, but you're not fully pressing. And that's what mostly I was doing, but I knew this girl was going to be dead. Yeah, that's my freshest memory. And they were the two witches, Sharon and her sister, who I don't even remember her name, the sister, but I can see her face. They were like kind of standing around and like egging it on. And Stacy had a pretty mean streak, I would say. So what I know is that at a certain point, I felt this girl's soul leave her body. And I immediately started crying and trying to bring her back to life and begging for her to come back. And these two witches were laughing. And I felt this, I don't know why, but I felt this like somehow responsibility also that she had even come to this babysitter. Like I felt like I had betrayed her by her even being here with these people. And yeah, I was just crying and begging for her to come back. And that was the kind of expression that I guess I allowed myself to have, because once I did the task that they were asking or really threatening me with doing, it was like then I could express the remorse. Because like to them, I got the job done, or at least so they thought, which, you know, when, and I don't have a lot of spiritual aftermath the way I do with the other one that I've recalled, unfortunately. Maybe it will come more even after this. Um, because there was such high trauma in the aftermath of what they did, which was we were then chased out of the kitchen with a chainsaw. So there's like this kitchen layout, the pentagram on the linoleum floor. They had a very like old 70s kitchen, very orange and like lime green, orange kind of burnt orange linoleum floor. I can see like the tile, you know, the it's not real tile, but um and that's the first time I ever saw a chainsaw. They chased us into the basement, which, you know, they would lock, and we would always be at the steps of, it was a very dark basement. And so Stacy and I were locked in there while they did what they were doing, which was, I guess, clean up. And I was really crying and screaming, and Stacy was holding her hand over my mouth. And I don't know how long later, but we were let out of the basement, and there was a semi-translucent plastic biohazard tub, like wastebasket. I don't know if, do you know what those, like they're, it's like the biohazard like trash cans. And there was plastic under it. And they were like, they were proud of what they had done. And we were like, what's in there, you know? And I remember them just saying, don't lean over. If you get your head in there, you'll get your face burned with lye, with acid. So what I believe, and I didn't see that I recall, but like, was that they had chopped up the body parts and put lye or acid to break it down. And I'm pretty sure that this woman buried bones in her yard. I'm like, I should give the address to the police. It's on McGurk Street in East Hampton. But I don't want to chase that rabbit hole. I don't want to look crazy.
And there's, I mean, Madison's testimony is, you know, says everything. She did do all of that and nothing was done. So you put yourself still at risk and you put a target on your back by pursuing
Yeah.
that. If
I
nothing
have
happens,
reported. Yeah. And I have reported a lot of these people to the FBI and the police.
And
So
was there
I didn't
anything
report
done?
this new memory, but I've reported other things that are screaming flags of that some shit went down.
And was anything ever done? Any callbacks? I
Nothing.
mean,
Nothing. And Tina Giles, the first police officer, she was like a chief of police that I ever reported anything to, didn't do shit. And then I looked at her walking around in her like fancy sneakers on her, retirement, and I just shook my head at her. I was like, mm-hmm, yeah,
how old were you when this memory
that's
happened?
um so again, I stopped going to Sharon at about 8 or 9.
Okay.
So I'm thinking this memory is at 6 or 7.
Okay. Oh my gosh. And just like walking through that with you, and you that young feeling guilt of, oh my gosh, this could be my fault that this happened. I mean, what a thing to contend with at such a young age, where you should be outside playing and, going to school and doing your simple little homework and playing on the playground and doing, little sports. And it's just so sad to think about the double binds that they put you in. There's no, how you said, you knew that you knew what the end result was going to be, whether you faked it or not, or you did something, the result was going to be the same. There's no choice. There's no way out. No matter what choice you make, the result is always going to be the same, which is
Uh, uh,
such a horrific thing to put a child through.
yeah, the double bind, right?
Mhm.
That's a double bind. It's like
Yeah.
no matter what you do, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's a hopeless situation when you're in that level of trauma, amongst psychopaths. And I do have a message. I don't know, because now I'm getting angry. Uh, that's, like I said, my freshest memory. So, to all of the people that are on this trajectory as perpetrators and part of this system, you guys are fucking losers.
Straight up.
You guys are fucking losers. And the light always wins. It's like the house always wins. The light will always win, really. So
Yeah.
you're on the wrong side.
Yeah. And we tend to, not us, but when people talk about, when you see online people posting about this group of people that partake in this, they call them things like elites. And there's almost like this fear messaging around it. And it's like, sure,
Yeah.
they do evil things, and like these people are not good
Yes.
people, but they're
Yeah.
literally hurting kids. Like, these are cowards.
Yeah.
These are losers. They hurt
Total
children,
cowards.
and then they keep it secret. They can't even like own up to what they do. They have to gaslight and hide and create secrets and
Mhm.
lies. Like, they're
Yeah.
losers. They're cowards.
Yeah, it's embarrassing for them. I mean, I'm wondering, I don't know. Like, I'm even looking at some of the celebrities that are like out on the red carpet with literal like like walking on the blood of children like over the bodies. That's how a lot of them got to this A-list level. And I'm just like, are you embarrassed? Like, are you like, you must be humiliated. And you must feel, if you have any kind of integrity, and we'll go into this, but like, when I was offered certain things as a child, I remember thinking, but that's cheating. Like, that's, oh, so I could get there, I could be a star, I can get these things. And we haven't gone into that part of my story yet. I can get those things, but it's like not really real. I didn't get to it the right way.
Yeah.
And just like my child mind going, oh, that's like cheating.
No,
Hmm.
you're so right. It's almost like taking steroids to get fit, like it'll give
Hmm.
you a result, but you didn't have to work for it the same way that other people do. And
Yeah.
yeah, that can't feel good if somebody has, and I know a lot of these people are programmed, and we'll talk about
Yes,
their journey going
yes,
through that. So
yes, they
that's
are.
like a whole, these people have
Yes,
gone through hell anyways. But yeah, like at some point you
yes,
do start to get memories, and at some point programming breaks down a little bit, and whether or not these people can get out of it,
yes.
ultimately, like at some point, everybody has a choice on how they pursue things. And it is really sad that so many people keep, like you said, walking on bodies to get fame, and
Mm-hmm.
they're dragging blood behind them on the trail of their dresses on these red carpets. I mean,
Oh
it's like
yeah.
the carpet's red, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I have a friend who's really into fashion and also has gone through some things with the Order of the Golden Dawn and just, some also was groomed in some things. And he went very anti-fashion and was doing all these postings of the red carpet, but like showing like Beyonce on the carpet with like literal like dead children underneath, like I don't know, superimposing, probably they were AI or like, and I was like, oh my god.
That's
um
great.
so I what I do want to say is that I have some compassion for those that made the wrong choice and then just kept making the wrong choice because they were already in too deep, and then those series of wrong choices became that they're just entrenched, they just are flooded and so guilt ridden that they can't even like begin to see out.
Yes, I do too. When I first started waking up to all of this, one of the things that I found first was all this gossip about celebrities and Illuminati and butterfly
Mhm.
symbols on celebrities. And I was posting a lot of that. And
Yeah.
once I like really stood back and like thought about it, I'm like, I'm just re-exploiting these people. Like, yeah, are some of them probably choosing to be there despite waking up and being able to leave?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a choice that a lot of people make, but it doesn't erase the fact that they didn't choose to be born into that they were
Right.
abused and betrayed by people that should have been protecting them. They were sold
True.
off into this either way, and were
Right.
given an unfair advantage to begin with. And so I do have compassion for people, but at the same time it's like, man, like how amazing it would be if one of these celebrities would actually break out and whistleblow, just one of them. Instead, it's the people, we're going to talk about your journey, that rebelled against it the whole time that they were being pushed into it. And that's one thing I mentioned
Um,
on your last testimony. Your testimony has so many different layers that are interconnected and that you've been able to put together in a way that makes sense and that overlaps a lot of other testimonies. And
yes.
we talked about a lot of the cult stuff, which is a big part. It's a layer of this. It creates trauma. It creates these double binds. It creates a lot of the emotional instability in a child, and the betrayal and the trauma bonds. And I mean, just so much. There's so many different things that these satanic rituals and these sacrifices and these horrific things that they put you through do.
Yes.
But another
Yes.
layer to that is at the same time while you're going through these different, trainings and rituals and trauma events, they're also grooming you for a position later in your life that they see fit for you. And I'm sure
Hmm.
there's, different ways that they figure out who goes into what. Maybe we can talk about that. But your journey,
Yes.
they
Yes.
wanted you in entertainment. You were being primed to be one of these, stars walking down the red carpet. And so do you want
Yes.
to maybe talk about how that started for you or how you were chosen for that?
Yes. So I think in the last interview, I had mentioned that the remote viewing program, the Stargate that I was a part of, had kind of come to a halt because of some of the exercises they were running, which had to do with the psychic spy stuff, which if you really become like a psychic, a spy operative, you need to be able to, one, keep secrets really well, um, pass messages, not engage in certain ways that are too vulnerable or open. And I had failed some of those exercises, not on the level of not being psychic enough, but about with passing notes and not speaking. They would try a lot of interception of like, well, let's try to hand her some candy and like see if she'll take the candy, or if we tell her not to talk, um you know, will she really hold to that when someone's right in her face saying, just the right things to get her to talk? And that's where I failed. And they said, she can't do this work. Um, as I had also failed uh, some of the exercises in creating like serious assassins beyond what I went through in these private rituals. I was not an assassin that could just like kill in a cold-hearted way and turn everything off. And so that just wasn't, you know, that wasn't my strong suit. And because they had laid so much programming in me, they had invested so much in me, and had, as I had said before, paid for my private school for a few years. They thought she might be good for entertainment. And that's
Mm.
when they started kind of luring me with the idea of being a Mouseketeer and Disney and all of these things that, I mean, every kid wants to go to Disney World. And I remember my handlers being involved in grooming my family into thinking this was again good for my future and a future possibility, and paying for our trip to Disney World, and actually like having a schedule set up there. And I remember they put us up in a Howard Johnson in at Disney World, which like I've actually tried to look at some of the locations that I could have been in the 80s around Orlando. Um, and there was one I found that I remember being there. And I remember they had us kind of on some of those like private cars that like uh take you around Disney World. And this is where I do remember meeting some of the children that did end up going on to have very big careers. Um, and I hesitate to even bring up some of the bigger names because it becomes, I mean, I don't know. It it can seem to go a little bit on the mainstream level of conspiracy theories, but the way I've recalled some of these kids was very organic, and it was before this was all very public. Some of my first MK Ultra memories that came up in 2013 were about being groomed for Disney. And so I've I've really had to put all my pieces together carefully. um but when I was taken to Disney World, I was supposed to do an audition like to be a Mouseketeer. And I was so shy. And I believe it was in front of Michael Eisner, who was the CEO of Disney at the time, who I definitely was around. Um, and I believe he's a very high, or was, I don't know if he's alive or dead. Uh, I believe he's a very high level handler. Um, and there's enough people that have come forward about Disney that it's like the cat's out of the bag about Disney. Um, I just remember I wanted the ears, and I kind of was too shy to do the audition. That I was like, I had like several lines I was supposed to say as like I think it was a Disney commercial audition kind of thing, but it
Mm.
was also going to determine whether I could be this Mouseketeer, and I wouldn't do the audition, and it was private audition, and he was like, "That's okay, like you can still have the ears." And I remember my parents being really disappointed. That's something I've had to deal with my whole life, is the disappointment of my parents on so many levels, where I think their hearts were in the right place, but they were misguided by some very evil people. And I remember like uh during this one Disney trip that I'm recalling, we went on the Matterhorn, or the Matterhorn ride. It's like it's a cave ride roller coaster. It doesn't go upside down, but it's very swervy and scary. And that felt kind of traumatizing to me. I also remember having my picture taken with those chipmunks, Alvin and the Chipmunks, is it?
Yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
So the live versions of them, like, the people. And I remember one of them holding me really tight and feeling really uncomfortable. I had a lot of attachment to my mother and always fear of being taken away, always. Um, yeah, and so I was like dissociating in that photo, and just afraid the whole time. That I just knew there were, because I had two handlers there that were like on me and my parents, and they were also like trying to get me alone, and they were getting me alone. I have memories of being at Epcot Center and getting brought into an alone space where I believe some programming happened, though I don't have all the memories of that. um and I do have one really visceral memory of being on the it's a Small World ride. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
It's a small world after all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that um was a water ride, and I remember sitting on those cars for like probably 20 minutes or so, it not taking off. And then it was like that breakdown scenario that I saw another one of your speakers talk about, which was, and then we were escorted off the ride and go into some other facility. And I remember being really disappointed. Like, I just wanted to go on that ride.
Oh.
And I think at some point we did get to see the whole ride, but I do have memory of that, where we were like loaded off and like escorted somewhere behind, like almost felt like a um backstage area, something, that I believe I went with my whole family. um I don't have the memories though of that fully. um and then reboarded. I'm pretty sure I did get to go on that ride like fully, but just the trauma of what these monsters do to your psyche, it makes everything scary when you're a kid, even the things that are supposed to be fun. And I believe they do that on purpose. I mean, I know they do.
Yes.
Yeah. And another another thing I remember was this idea of doing some local talent things. Like my mother was being kind of groomed to take me to some pageants. Again, I was very stage shy. So I did things because there was, so I see that there's a lot out there in the conspiracy world of the mainstream about performers and how spirits come into them and take over the performance. I know that to be true because I remember it, and I remember being taught about it as a child, and I remember spirits being put into my body, and knowing that I was not going to be the full one performing, and knowing that if I forgot my lines, something else was going to take over that was programmed to do that. And this is how stage shy I was. I didn't even trust that. And so, uh, but also, they tried at one point to kick my soul out of my body, and my angelic guides of light were not having that, and were not allowing that. And so there was somehow co-occurrence allowed to happen through some of my own sins that I was forced to commit, that allowed those demonic frequencies to come in, which I've, by the way, since done multiple deliverances with other ministers and people trained to do this, exorcisms. Um, but that's a very real thing. And at one point, I was supposed to go on Star Search. I was trained to sing a song called Sunday Morning Love by Etta James. I remember thinking, why am I singing such an adult song? Because, like, as a kid, you're not really, it's not very excitable to sing a song like that. You don't even understand what it is. And so you're just doing this adult thing. I had the voice to do it. And I was brought to the show. I met the leader, the host of that show. Uh, is It's Ed McMahon, right? I remember his face and the glasses, and I remember the studio and the carpeting in the back room that we were in, and I was so nervous. And I told my mother I was nauseous, and she got someone to get us some like saltine crackers, and I was drinking seltzer, but then I literally threw up on the carpet backstage, and yeah, and I refused to go on, even though I knew the song, even though the demonic frequencies would come in and help me remember things or take over and carry that performance. I disappointed my mother again, and refused to go on. And who I believe went on was Christina Aguilera. And she slayed the song, and she sang it, and she wore the costume I was supposed to wear. And what I understand or gather is that there was some kind of understudy thing set up with that show. And she was a little younger than me. um, like by 1 or 2 years. And what I remember was after the fact, my handlers said, we would, we still, we still want to invest in you, but you have to want this. And if you're not going to take this seriously, like it was like they almost had a little humanity for the stage fright, but they were like, this is what we're offering you, and we can make you a triple threat, and you can have the best of the best of the best. You can have the best of everything. Which honestly, how can you have the best uh of everything when you've had the worst, you know? Um and I just remember looking at this little girl who looked like just a little compliant girl, and that was her. Uh and I said, I was like, I don't know if I want it. I was like, I want to talk more with my family. Like at a certain point for things like performance, you have to kind of be into it and be compliant, and like you can't just keep like, you know, bowing out and, you know, or chickening out. Um and they said, well then she'll take it and she'll have, you know, we'll just put it into her. And okay. And I just like, I saw that she was way more like controlled and willing to go along. And my sense too was that she might have had more financial pressure from her mother or parents than maybe I did. Because there was that pressure with my family, but I think it was ultimately they just wanted me to be good at something and, you know, kind of have a future for something, direction. Now, I believe that I don't know why with that memory I see a contract that was like supposed to be signed or formed at that time. And it's it's very layered for me with, you know, in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, when yeah, like the original, like Gene Wilder, is that his name? Gene Wilder? Yeah. Version, when he has all the kids sign the contracts with their parents. I believe that that is probably even an intentional programming in there, because there's something where my mind layers the memory of that contract with that movie, where I would get very triggered and kind of like brought into the memory of my own um, contract signing, which would have, you know, which there likely was a contract with that show, even with your mother signing you, you know, but I think there's spiritual components there that I felt as a child, even if it didn't literally say like, you know, you belong to the devil, or, you know, um, and now I would like to jump a little forward into, so when I like also failed out of that and kind of opted out, and I actually then went to my parents and said, for as much as I wanted to be a singer and a performer and a dancer and all these things and an actress, um I to me that meant danger at that point in time because of what had been happening to me, and so that ruined my dream at that moment. um and I said to my parents, I don't want this. Like I just want like a normal like childhood where I can like play and not like be held to all these things that these people want from me. And
Pressure.
so much pressure on so many levels. And what I remember is basically being, what is the word? It's like when you're being like
It's like
pushed out,
like transitioning you.
transitioned out. Yes. Yes. And what they did was they did some programming that I watched with my father, especially, where they were like making him forget, and they were wiping my memory clean, which they did a lot with the electroshocking wands. And then I became aware at that point that they were going to use me for whatever they wanted to use me for whenever they needed. And that's when there are things that happened when I was 13, 14, where I remember once being in my uh it was my English teacher who, and I was in public school at this time, and it was after school, and somehow I was called into her classroom. The little window at the door was covered up, the door was locked, and there was a man there that was like her boyfriend, handler, and we acted out some kind of sexual fetish
Hmm.
where I went under the name Sylvester. um that was one of my sexual parts that was more male, and they had her in like these, I don't know, like a garter belt, and it wasn't not full contact, but it was still sexualized. It was some kind of intimacy, and I was under a program. I was under one of the beta sex kitten programs. um and I have another memory where I was collecting UNICEF money during Halloween, I want to say. So I was like trick or treating for candy. I had my UNICEF box, and someone had programmed me under the UNICEF. It kind of looks like a carton the way they used to be. There was a separate thing underneath the UNICEF box where I was collecting drug money and I was delivering. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what I remember. And I was electroshocked, and my memory was wiped clean there too. I was literally delivering some drugs. I walked into some really shady houses out in Long Island and in East Hampton where I was not comfortable, but they knew why I was there. And I was like doing something operatively that I don't fully understand, but except that it was drugs.
Wow.
I know. So there was that. Um, yeah.
It's like they turn things that are so benign into evil. Like, who would
Yes.
ever suspect a child with a trick or treat bag could be collecting money or distributing drugs? It would just look from the outside like you're getting candy and walking away. You know,
Right.
it wouldn't
That's right.
raise any alarms for anybody.
That's right. Yes, and there was one house I remember going into with this man, and it was so scary, and he like made me come inside, and I was just standing there, and it was just skeevy, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, I remember getting my memory wiped, and they just took my money. They took that money. I kept my trick or treat, my candies, and I had my normal UNICEF money that was in the main carton part, and they just took the money from the underneath compartment. I know. It's like, to me it's actually a little insane, but
Especially Halloween too, a high occult
yes.
ritual night too. So I mean,
Yes.
again, the layers, the inversions and the layers that they do.
Yes. Yes, and I even think, and I just want to say, yeah, there's another thing that even people that have not been through SRA, um, they have been inundated, as we know, with occultism and Satanism also in growing up in this country. And there's just, I had this whole affinity for horror movies as a kid, because of this, and I remember a friend and I once toilet papered a graveyard on Halloween. I know. And like, to do something, we were young. We just thought we were being like cool teenagers. We were 14, and it's funny, it's not funny, but as adults I've spoken to that friend, and we were like, "Oh my God," like she was like, "I think we picked up attachments, um like entities from that experience." And I was like, "Yeah, like that makes sense." It's like, to not know that that's not okay on so many levels, even like spirit, especially spiritual levels, all of it. It just shows how depraved, not only what was done to me, but just how desensitized and like haunted we are as a society by, with I don't celebrate Halloween anymore, by the way.
Mhm.
But yeah. But yeah, like what were we thinking?
No,
And
they've normalized all that so much. And people don't know the history of things. We just are born into like, oh, you just go trick or treating on Halloween. We don't question it. We just robotically go along with it
right,
our whole life and then put our
right,
kids in it and never question, like, wait, what is the meaning behind this holiday and why are we doing this?
right, right,
And when you
right.
do it,
And
that's whenever it starts to be like, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. But it's so
yeah,
normalized, like we don't even question it. It's just something that you just do.
yeah. And like, as an energetically sensitive person, like, you can feel on Halloween that there's a danger brewing in the air. Like, I felt it every Halloween, even when I was dressing up and going and hanging with my friends. There's just an not, there's something wrong. There's
Yeah,
something off-putting energetically. And I'd like to also speak to, if it's okay, like the later years of still being accessed, um and how it actually still did relate to entertainment, um where, more behind the scenes, and how traumatizing that was also.
absolutely. I want to just
Yeah,
comment real
yeah,
quick that I
yeah,
I love how rebellious your spirit always was. Even if consciously you didn't know
yeah,
why these things were making you nauseous or that you didn't
yeah,
want to do it, there was
yeah,
like a part of you intuitively that they couldn't break enough for you to comply. Like it just never
yeah.
sat well with you, no matter. And we're going to share one of your songs later, but for people listening, like you
Yeah.
are an amazing singer and songwriter. Like
Oh,
you have an
thank,
incredibly beautiful, amazing voice and a talent and a gift. Like
thank you.
you could have been easily a Christina
Thank
Aguilera,
you.
So it's
Thank
like
you.
if people actually hear and like listen to your music, and like I said, we'll showcase it later, but like
Thank
you
you.
absolutely were somebody that easily could have been primed for
Thank you.
the stars that people like me grew up with in that same era. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just amazing to me that it just never, you always somehow like rebelled against it, even if it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
you purposely doing it, just getting nauseous
Mm-hmm.
and throwing up and like, crap, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's badass that you
Thank you.
always knew somehow they couldn't ever break you and like take that from you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a good reminder, because I see it more like I wimped out, like I wasn't strong enough.
No.
Um, And the ironic thing about, sharing this about some of these pop stars is that I never was into pop music like as a teenager. I remember when Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera's music surfaced. I remember watching, I think, like Genie in a Bottle or something, and like dissociating hardcore, which, by the way, Genie in a Bottle is also a programming, an MK Ultra tool of, think of a genie in a bottle, it's something that goes inside, so it's a very
Mm.
good like hiding tool, and they're accessing that, I believe, in the programming, in the lyrics. But I remember just I hadn't remembered that original memory of the Disney grooming stuff and the Star Search part, and so I was just dissociating. Like I could feel her dissociation. I knew something was wrong. And then also on a level of just, I was always with like the freaks that were really into like more grunge movement, and so we were the anti of any of that music. Like it would be embarrassing to even admit that you listened to anything like that, so I just didn't, though. And so I have no reason to claim it, except in this organic way that I remembered. And I want to say one more thing to that, which is in 2010, when my first memories of sexual abuse surfaced, and I had to go to a rehab called the Meadows in Arizona. My therapist called me while I was at the airport, and on the way there, and I had a memory, not a memory, well, a dream memory or something, the night prior to flying there, and I was a mess. My whole system was breaking down. I was going through an MK Ultra breakdown, um, and at 31 years old, which is about that age, the age that will happen.
Yeah.
And I yeah, I was about, I'm like trying to think of my age about that. And I told my therapist, I said, this is really weird, but I had a dream that I was in this like private carpeted therapy space, and Britney Spears was there crying and breaking down, and I was there with her, and we were hugging in this group of like 5 women, and everyone was just comforting us, and there was this symbiotic, I don't know, like we were like going through trauma remembrance. And so I said, I think I thought it was a prophetic vision of like that maybe she's gonna be at this rehab. I didn't understand it, and I didn't know any of the things that are now out about the programming of the pop stars, and I just didn't know. And so, and my therapist was like, wow, well, yeah, maybe she will be. And I thought nothing of it until 3 years later, I started to recall the actual MK Ultra programming part of it and the other things that I've shared. So, yeah. And it just, my hope in sharing this is just that it helps again fill in more blanks. That's all we can really do, is like as survivors, is heal ourselves and share and fill it in for others.
Yes. And it's important we do that, especially her of all people. I mean, how horrific she's been treated, and how many people are stepping back and saying, wait, what's going on behind the scenes? What did this girl go through to be acting this way,
Yeah.
or to be acting out, or shaving her head, or whatever it is,
Mhm.
we're so
Yeah.
quick to judge the side effects of things without saying, well, what's the root cause of this? And I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you, sharing a different side that, the public doesn't see of her and
Mm-hmm.
others. It does. It helps us be able to take that step back and look at things with a different perspective and lens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is so weird, but so like I remember being around her a little as a kid, but more in like peripherally, like we met in the Disney circle. I think at Disney World I met her there and her parents, but I wasn't. And then I have a later memory which you have that photo of, and that could have been possibly even a clone body, because I know that they always threatened to do clones of the kids.
You want me to bring
Um,
it up?
but what?
You
Yeah.
want me to bring the photo up?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, so I'm sitting in the back corner in all white wearing what they said should be an urban outfit. And at that time, it was like kind of just the start of like hip hop getting, big. And I'm wearing these platforms that I bought in London because I lived there abroad for a year in school. And they had me sitting behind her, from what I understand, to hold psychic space for her and project emotions and just like basically, I don't know, it's like the like project energy, give all the supportive energy. But I felt ignored. I was very quiet. People were not really talking to me, and I was deeply under mind control there.
And was this was the Oops, I Did It Again video?
That's Oops, I Did It Again, which I also have some understandings about the writing of that song. I'm not going to say that I even helped to write the song, but I feel like there were some emotional channelings into it.
Mm.
Um, and she wasn't that nice to me. Um, there, I would say when I met her as a kid, she was nicer. Um, there was one thing that I had a chance to do, which was I was a gymnast, and she was supposed to do a flip over like it's like a flip over a bar, or like she tumbles. And I was an actual gymnast, so I was trying to show her some of that. But I felt like I don't know how to like really express. I really felt like what was being instilled in me from these handlers was that I wasn't really needed. I was kind of useless to them. And I think that was just a position of like depowering someone,
Yeah.
or just making them feel expendable or disposable.
Yes. Thank you for
Um,
sharing this. Everybody, this video was like so iconic, and of course, everybody knows who Britney Spears is. It's interesting
do you
to
see how
understand.
I'm clutching? I'm just like, yeah, sorry.
Yes. So no, I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit so people can
Hmm.
see it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so was it more to like give her energy, like um how you were saying there were forces that were guiding you through performances? Were you sort of channeling that into her performance, creating the video? Or
No,
what
I
was
think
the
she has her own system of that they've
sure.
inundated her with and programmed her with. But I think on a video shoot where she's doing so much, both singing, dancing, like doing all her stuff, I think she just needed some, it's going to sound weird, but emotional psychic support. So
Okay.
I would drain myself to pro- okay, so like if you understand, like I'm thinking of that cartoon, like the Care Bears or something, when the light comes out of their belly, or it's almost like that's how energy transference works, and healing, like actual pranic healers or energy healers is they, well, if they're doing it from the source of God, it's coming through them from like divine holy father mother to someone, and I believe in that level of miracle healing and energizing. But what this felt like for me was just depleting myself to give it to someone else.
Mm. Help her get through her performance with
Yes.
your light, basically. You're draining your
Yes.
light and giving that to her.
Yes. And again, she had her own light as well. It's just that when you're doing so many things under that level of pressure and performance, to have someone come and hold space. And this was something I had to figure out by remembering being there, and then asking I have a friend who's also like a shaman, like, why was I there, what was I doing there, and then he was talking about the holding psychic space, the energetic space.
It's fascinating.
I know this stuff is wild, I really do. And
I
the
remember, I just want to say, I
yeah.
remember being young when MTV was a thing, and I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure this specific video, they used to have like a behind the scenes making the video show on MTV where they'd show
Yes.
you like, the 3 intense days that it took to make a music video.
Yes.
And that was
Yes.
one video. And I remember watching that multiple times, and they would say how many hours she was performing a day. And I think for some of her videos, I don't remember that one exactly, but there were times it was almost like 24 hours straight. She'd barely
Mhm.
sleep. And it would just be like 3 days straight of like
Yeah.
dancing and singing and performing. And I remember thinking, like, how does somebody
How
do
do you
that?
do it? Yeah.
But I mean, what you're saying, it helps paint a bigger picture that there's
Yeah.
there's ways that they're having people do these things that
Yes.
intensely.
And to corroborate my memory with this, I reached out to Nigel Dick, who was the director of that music video, being like, why was I here? Why am I in this picture? Like, this is what I remember. And he was such an asshole to me. These people just, they're compliant in one way or another, whether they're programmed into it or they fully know and are complicit. He just brushed, I spoke to him like directly on DM. And he was just like, I've met so many people over the years, like, don't be surprised if I don't remember you. Like, just like, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. What
Entitled.
I, what I also wanted to go into, if I can, if that, or
Yeah.
unless it's too fast of a
No, please go ahead.
transition. Uh, Later on in my life, I moved to New York City at age 20, and I was working in fashion. I worked first for a vintage clothing store on West Broadway called What Comes Around Goes Around. What Goes Around Comes Around. Very expensive, high-end vintage clothing that a lot of celebrities would shop in, like everyone under the sun. And it was fun. I mean, I just worked there as like a shop girl, and I then that summer I was shopping at a flea market, and I was picking all the clothing that this designer Jill Stewart liked. She's also quite a well-known designer in New York City, and I worked for her. She hired me on the spot and asked me to come to work for her as her design inspiration, vintage buyer, that kind of thing. And I worked for her for like really half of a year, because she was it's very hard to, I mean, I worked on 7th Avenue, like uh and it was not easy, it was not an easy job, but I learned a lot there. And there was a fashion party that I attended there. And I still always wanted to be a singer. That's the funny thing about all of it. So at 20, and I was just going, I want to be a singer though. Like I like this, I like um art and fashion and like visual beauty, but I really just always wanted to sing my heart out. And I went to this party and I was talking to this Australian guy, and he told me he was a music manager. And I was like, oh, I've been wanting to be a singer. And we just were talking, and he said, but you're like a spiritual channel. You should be a ghostwriter. Yeah. And I didn't even know what that, he's like, do you know what that is? And I was like, no, like, I don't. It was reminding me of like, isn't there a show called Ghostwriter, or like, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, there was.
what?
I said there was. I think it was like a kid's show.
Okay. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, the kids show. Yes. And so yeah, he explained to me that he had a new artist who he was going to be promoting and working with, and she had an almost complete album but needed a really good ballad, and maybe I should join the team to kind of channel some stuff and help them write. So this is a real-time memory that happened to me in this body. Um, and the only corroboration I really have with it is my ex-boyfriend knew that I got hired into this ghostwriter job. Oh, sorry. And so I was flown by him, this manager, and the artist he was representing was Pink. So Alicia Moore. And no one really knew about her at the time. And he, so I'm about to tell quite a story here that will, I think, also fill in some missing pieces about like how things happen in music industry and in selling your soul and that kind of stuff. So I just, again, I had dissociated my entire childhood. Whether this network knew about me on some level, whether this manager even, whether it's a spiritual network that you just keep attracting the same kinds of experiences and people, it can be that as well. Um, I went home, told my boyfriend, who was a very talented drum and bass DJ and MC, actually, that I had met in Phoenix, Arizona. We had lived together like for like half a year before we moved to New York City, in Tempe, Arizona. And I went home to tell him that I just got hired as a ghostwriter for like some pop album. And he was so jealous because he was like, what do you know about any of this kind of thing? And I was like, yeah, but I'm gonna take it. I remember over preparing, like I brought my special notebook for this, even though that was not needed. They were gonna direct me. I was put up in a Marriott in LA. I was flown to LA. um and I met with her team, Pink's team, at Gold Star Studios in, I believe it's downtown LA. And I don't know that it's a studio anymore, but it was Phil Spector's studio. Um, yeah, Phil Spector, who's now deceased and was also accused of killing that actress Lana Clarkson. And I remember meeting Linda Perry from the Four Non Blondes, who at that point had left her band and was on the independent writer side. I met L.A. Reid and Phil Spector and his partner, who I think the guy's name was David Silver. I think that's his name. But they were both the co-owners of Gold Star, where the writing session and recording was being hosted. And I spent a few days in that studio with them. I mean, like I went back to the hotel to sleep, but we were in writing session. And what they did was they asked me they needed a ballad. They wanted to express Pink's traumatic trauma with her family, her toxic family stuff. And also, from what I'm remembering, is that she was a runaway at 15 and she had a meth addiction or something. And from what I know about MK Ultra too, is I feel like they picked her up. Like, so, she was either born into it or picked up like at 15. Very talented, very nice to me. Was showing me all of her tattoos. I was sitting on the floor, she was sitting on the chair, and we were just talking, and she had like these dog tags that were like military. And I just remember feeling that I was in another world, a little out of my element. That like this was a fast-paced girl that had like in a way lived more than me, is what I felt at the time. Well, partially because I'd blocked a lot of my things. So she just seemed like a badass to me. Um, and what, so Linda Perry and L.A. Reid mostly were prompting me, asking me, like, what's the most significant thing that has ever happened to you? And at the time of what I could remember, it was my back surgery that I had had when I was 16. I had been a competitive gymnast. I developed a really severe scoliosis. Um, and I ended up having a surgery where they put 2 Harrington rods into my back, fused my spine using bone from the back of my hip. And then 1 year later, I got those rods all removed. And I shared the story of that. And they used it as a metaphor for the song Just Like a Pill. And yeah, yes. I mean, I can tell you every line and why we wrote it, um, because of the prompting, because they pulled the story out of me. And so it was, to have back surgery, it's a really invasive surgery. The first one was like a 12-hour surgery. The second one was a 5-hour surgery for the removal. And on the second one, I actually felt like, why did I put myself through this? And I remember asking my mom post-surgery to kill me, because I just was in such pain. You can't breathe. It's like the wind is knocked out of you in a way that you can't, it's really intense. And so I shared all of that, and I shared about how at one point I'm gonna slow down a little because I can see I'm getting like,
Of course, take your time.
yeah, I was like rushing the story. Um so I told them about how I couldn't move for a few months. Like I was on my back in the hospital. I was there for about 3 weeks. I was always a fast healer, so it was early for me to leave, but I had to just be on my back a lot. And I didn't have control of anything because I had a breathing machine. I had a pain, injection or IV where I could press the button and administer more, but only a certain level, and then, like for that amount of time. And then, um, and my mom was with me by my side really the whole time. But the morphine made my skin so itchy that I was having my mother take like, I think like a pencil or chopsticks and like, okay, so they had these like inflating kind of balloons, like they're like water wings, but they inflate, to keep your legs circulating. And so I
Hmm.
was asking my mom to like scratch into the leg that because I couldn't reach anything, and the morphine makes your skin so itchy.
Mm.
So in the line, there's a line in just like a pill where she says, so there's a line where she says, I can't stay on your morphine. There's a shortage in the switch. I can't stay on your, oh, sorry. No, I can't stay on your life support. There's a shortage in the switch. I can't stay on your morphine. It's making me itch. And then, yeah, this is from me telling my experience. And I said, and then I said to her, like, and there were times where I would like press the bell for the nurse and she wouldn't come when I needed her. And I was like having trouble breathing or needed like more. They had me in an intensive care at one point because the breathing thing was, I would get anxious, couldn't breathe, the beeping would go off and that kind of thing. And when I told that part to Alicia, I was like, sometimes she wouldn't come when I needed her. And she was like, oh, she was being a little bitch. And I was like, no, she was nice. And she's like, we're putting it in. And, it rhymes. Like, we're putting it in. So it's, I can't stay, I can't stay on your life support. There's a shortage in the switch. I can't stay on your morphine. It's making me itch. I tried to call the nurse again, but she's being a little bitch. I think I'll get out of here where I can run as fast as I can to the middle of nowhere. Now they will, when they write a song like this, to get to the heart of the emotionality, they want your deepest core feelings. And so they were prompting me with the questioning, how did you like feel at that moment? And I was like, I just wanted to run into nowhere. I wanted like where would if you go to nowhere, like, so it's like uh, where I can run to the middle of nowhere, or as fast as I can to the middle of nowhere, to the middle of my frustrated fears. And I remember literally them pulling that feeling, the verbalization of that feeling out of me. And I literally said verbatim, to the middle of my frustrated fears, because what I was feeling at that time was, and I was also talking, by the way, about my own family dynamic and their overprotection of me when I had been a teenager, because they did get overprotective. I wasn't allowed to go to Lollapalooza to see Courtney Love and Sonic Youth and all the things I wanted. They were like, it was like the childhood stuff made them like close into this other, yeah, go into that other direction. And so there was a control going on between that programming and then the strictness. And I was expressing that also in the trauma of the surgery. And yeah, it's a lot. But when I so I corroborated this with my ex-boyfriend, where I said, do you remember me going to LA to do this? And he's like, I do remember when you left the job with Jill Stewart, or like when you were on the outs with that, you ended up going and doing this, thing. At the time, like, I was already not wanting to be in fashion when I went to that party. So I don't know that I quit right then and there, but like I went and did this thing. And what I remember next is that um I I said, kind of like on a break in our writing of this, uh I said I want to be a singer, like I want to be the singer, kind of thing. And Linda Perry was like, "Can you sing?" And I was like, "I can. I've done a lot of, trainings in middle school, like NISMA and, like singing festivals. Hamptons, I forgot the name of the festival, but it's a Hamptons like singing choir festival." And so I actually, just as a gutsy, like young person, I sang a part of What's Up to her. I like stood up and sang it. And she said, "You have a good instrument. You need more vocal training. And when you get that training, if you come back to me, I'll produce you like in my independent, yeah, um, label." Um, but Phil Spector was there because they were observing, they were like in and out because they were hosting it. And Phil said, we can like make you a singer. And he looked at David and he kind of was like, "Yeah, show her around." And he's like, "Yeah, do you want a tour of like the rest of the studio, our studio?" Um, and so I was like, "Okay." And I was taken out of that room where, we were as a team working on that. And I was taken down the corridor. We went into a locked room to the left, like probably either one or two doors down. And when we opened the door, it was all it's like the black foam flooring for
Mm-hmm.
studios, but there was a sigil on it, a big sigil. And there was a couple of statues that were making me also kind of have some dissociative memory. I believe one was the Baphomet goat statue. Um, and there was an original record press there, which they said was like one of four in the country. Jack White has one of them at his place in Nashville. Uh, what is the name of his studio? Doesn't matter. Third Man Records. He has
Mm-hmm.
one too, where the music gets pressed right onto the vinyl. And they were like, we have one of these. And they said, what we do is we have we all of our artists that we work with. Well, first they started talking about, are you open uh to new things spiritually? What's your religion? And I said, well, I was raised Jewish, but I'm at that time I was like, I'm just into yoga and meditation. That's what I was into. And they're like, so but you're open to new ideas, new spiritual ideologies. And I was like, yeah, you know um and they started kind of going into like, so we have um when our any artist we work with, it goes on to this master, we do prayers and rituals with the moon, with the full moon. And they were like started to explain things like that, like occult things, which sounded kind of just, at that moment I wasn't fully connecting, but I was dissociating enough that I was uncomfortable with the energy. And and they explain that they assign like spiritual like principalities onto the vinyl to make it do well with the public and to make it sell. They do full moon rituals and things. And then they said, if we were to give you this opportunity, which we can make you a pop star in like 6 weeks to 2 months. And they were like, we can make you a triple threat: dancing, singing, acting. We can pay for all your training. Like, we can get you shaped up. But if we were to do this, it would take a lot of sacrifice. Would you be willing to sacrifice? And at that time, I'm like, I feel like I'm just on a job interview. Like, I just, like the way I interview for a retail clothing store or a fashion job. And I'm thinking like sacrifice weekends with friends. And so I said, yeah, well, I'd be willing to work really hard for you. And I'm kind of giving these dogmatic answers. And they said, is there anyone you have close to you that you'd be willing to let go of? That's the kind of sacrifice that we require. And I'm thinking, like, not my parents, like that's already like hitting something for me. Uh and I'm thinking, like, anyone close to me? And they were like, preferably blood related, but someone that you're like invested in emotionally. And I started like thinking, like, let go of, like, stop the friendship, or I was like, well, I have like some cousins. I'm like actually going through this in my mind. Um and I thought of, at that moment, a frenemy that I had kind of been in my group of friends that I was close with at a point, but then she kind of turned against me a little bit and just wasn't being very nice. And I said her name. I'm not going to say it here. I said her name, and they said, where does she live? What are her habits? And I was like, well, she lives in Montauk. And they were like, so we would need her address, her sort of general schedule, which we'd need you to kind of invest in finding out. And I was like, what are we talking about here? Like, I'm thinking all these, like, and I said, are you talking about like killing her? And they're like, oh, like, they're like, oh, you know, we don't do anything like that. And they're like, but if we did, I forget the wording that they used, but they said anyone that would like disappear, your friend or anyone, is like we have someone else do that. And I literally was like, they're talking about taking my friend out. And I literally was like, I want what they're offering me. I really want it. And I had the literal angel devil thing, the like one on one shoulder. And I'm going like, I want what they're offering, like, pretty badly. And I just, like, my light angels are going, you better not. and I said, well, what if I say yes, but then I change my mind? And they're like, nope, once you commit, and like once something's like that is done, or you sign a contract, like, it's done, like, you can't go back. And I just was like, I don't know, I don't think so. Like, I don't think I can do that. And immediately they just went up, she's not into it, and they just like whisked me out of that room so fast. They literally pulled me out the door. They're like, let's go, honey. They were like, don't worry, you're a dime a dozen. There's plenty of others that take it. And that was it. And they pulled me out of the room, back through the corridor, back into the writing room where everyone just was like as if nothing had happened, because they probably knew, the team probably kind of had an idea, but like it was a private conversation. And this part, I'm I've really worked on not blaming myself uh for what then transpired after this, which is that we we finished that session, but there was also negotiation that happened where they were like, how much do you think you should be paid for this? Because they were like, we need to negotiate like what you get paid as an independent writer on this. um it was, they were like, and they were kind of making fun of me being a novice at this, industry. And so they're like, what do you think you should make? And by this time, Pink was not even there. Like she was gone. And it was more the writers like talking about the splits. And I said, I don't know, like $1 million, because I knew I was like in this, like I had just arrived at this pop industry opportunity. So I don't know what it generates. And I said $1 million and they laughed at me and they were like, haha, you don't know how this industry works. Like there's so much money we put into the promotion of this. And, it's not like that. They decided that the fair split should be 15%, 30% for me and Linda Perry on the independent side. And then I was excited, like, what will I have my name be? Linda said, well, you're not necessarily like trying to be a ghostwriter as a career, like committed to this. So I think your name should be silent. And she cut me, she like kind of, honestly, it's pretty shitty. She got me to like somehow be okay with having my name be silent as the on the independent writing. I know. It's very sad, and these are stories I've heard from other musicians that are just like, yep, like it's so normal in the industry, the heartbreak of the song stealing or the credit stuff. Um Again, I don't like to just be a victim here, but it's not it's not uh it's not kosher. Um and what was decided upon was 15% on my side, but no name, and 15% for Linda Perry, and then everyone else taking their cut, the 70, however they split, and Gold Star taking its house whatever fee, and then this is so embarrassing, but because of how young I was and because my parents still controlled my finances and my banking, I didn't even like know how to accept a check, like and deposit a check. And so I wanted cash. I wanted to go shopping in LA. Okay. Um, and I wanted cash, so I was willing to take less money for the cash. And I mean, they were like, I think they were just looking at each other like, okay, this is like a kid, Um, and they did agree to that like amount. And I think I settled for less, which I'm not remembering the exact nominal fee, like the exact. Um, and then I ended up needing, like, I didn't need, but I was offered a ride back uh to the Marriott that I was staying at by Phil Spector. And what I remember was Linda was going to give me a ride, and she said something like, but you like taking advantage of young girls. And she said it kind of playfully, like, oh, but you kind of have and I was so at that point really not knowing my own trauma and not understanding like fully sexual assault and just not being aware of it in the forefront. And he said a trigger MK Ultra word, like he said, "Oh, she'll be fine, won't you, my little butterfly?" And I kind of went into a bit of a dissociation of more docile. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's okay." And then that session ended. We left the um office, and there was, those parking lots that have tiers to them, like, yeah, like concrete. And we walked out where I was going to get into Phil's car, and David, his partner, and him both fought over who was going to take me home, who was going to drive me. And I remember them both pulling me, and I just felt really like, what is this? And also, just I was just a young pretty thing that, like, I was being treated in this way of, like, total misogyny. um Phil took me in, I think it was a Porsche that he had. And he was supposed to take me to my hotel, but on the drive, he was like, "I have this beautiful French chalet, my home. I want you to see it. I want to show you all of my awards and statues." And, like, it's just such an experience. Like, you really just want to go back to the Marriott. Like, what are you going to do there? Like, kind of like, don't be lame, just like hang out. He coaxed me into it, and I said, "Okay, well, maybe just for like an hour." And then I am tired. I do feel tired. Like, I want to go to sleep early. And we got there, and I felt uncomfortable. Like, as soon as we got there, um, he had a lot of statues, crystal things, and like awards. And I remember being like, "Oh, that's so pretty." There was this crystal thing, and I didn't want to touch it. He's like, "You can touch it. The maid will clean it," kind of thing. And he had like a rotary phone in the front, like, foyer. And I remember pretty instantly saying, I think I should just kind of go, like, back to the hotel sooner than later. And he was like, "Just stay for a drink." And I said, "I don't even want alcohol, because, like, I just didn't." And he said, I think I have some seltzer, or, something like that. Um, and he, like, grabbed a drink and handed it to me. And then I said, "I think I would just want to call a taxi. Can I call? Do you have like this is old times too, like, not, you know, iPhones, and just look something up." And so I was like, "Can I look up a number for a taxi, or do you know a number for a taxi?" And he had like yellow pages, and I looked in the yellow pages for a taxi. And I was like about to call, and he went out of the room, and I heard him make a phone call to someone. Oh, the other thing that happened was he tried to read off MK Ultra code words, and it wasn't working fully, because I was only partly dissociated, because somehow my internal system had created, yes, a lot of dissociation, but I had broken some of that programming already. And so I wasn't going into like immediate sex kitten stuff. I was looking at him kind of like, "What are you doing?" And in my own dissociative state, but not enough to lose consciousness. And I heard him make a phone call, which I felt like was something about, like, it wasn't working, the codes. And then he said, "What should I do?" And got off the phone, was rumbling around in both his kitchen and the bathroom, and in like cabinets, like I could hear something. He comes out with a folded, like, paper, a half folded paper towel, and says, "Smell this." And I was like, "What is it?" And he's like, "It's a cologne that I bought in Paris." And just over the nose, and I dropped to the floor. Um, and I remember dropping. I remember literally falling to the floor and, like, hitting my head and just out. So what I've come to understand is that he chloroformed me, and I was just passed out for the rest of the night. But I have some uh conscious, like part conscious memories or subconscious memories of conversations. At one point I was aware that he was so demonically possessed that he said something like, you think you'll ever make it in this industry, you think you're better than us. Like, he was angry that I did not sell my soul in that, like, previous um moment. And his demons were angry, and I couldn't do anything. I was like, had the thoughts and feelings to try to stop what was happening, but I couldn't. I don't think he raped me, but I know that there was penetration. I feel that he might have done something with it, like an object. He wanted to humiliate me and like sexually violate me. And then I also remember him calling someone and having them over, and who I've come to understand that it's Daryl Hall from Hall and Oates. I kind of actually think I opened my eyes a few times and just saw the figure, and he was this blonde young musician. And I remember him saying, Phil saying to him, what do you think? And him going, she's beautiful, but what are you doing? Like, what are you gonna do with her? And he's like, well, touch her, like, like, have some fun. Um, and what I have come to understand through my memory processing is that he was filming him. He used it as an opportunity to blackmail Daryl Hall so that he could probably further control his catalog. Um, whatever that meant to him, but control him as an artist under his label. Uh, and by the way, Phil Spector, if people don't know, like, he like created the wall of sound. Like, it was a technique for creating like pop candy music, making something really like uh catchy to the ears, as in music. He produced the Ronettes, and I think he was married to Ronnie Spector, um from the Ronettes. And he produced a lot of other musicians. And all I know is that Daryl Hall begrudgingly touched me, but I could feel that he did not want to. That even that maybe his sexual preference goes the other way. That he didn't want to do it, but he did the minimum, and that it was filmed. And I can also say that when I was earlier in exposing some of these things a little more publicly on my Instagram, uh, Hall and Oates watched every single story when I started to talk about Phil Spector. I think I even have screenshots of him viewing the story, which I could probably actually find if I searched through my photos. And yeah, he was monitoring me, like, to see what I was gonna tell. Well, I'm telling it because, um and so that was my experience. I woke up the next day bottomless with like a wife beater tank top on, which I used to wear a lot of those, so it might have been my own, in a very gaudy room with gold and burgundy, uh alone in a bedroom. And he he acted all like, oh, you just fell asleep, like, you got tired and fell asleep, and let me get you a cab home. He threw money at me cash. I didn't get paid for I didn't really get paid what I was supposed to get paid for the song writing. Um, I went to the Marriott to get my things, and I never got to shop, and I got on my flight back and I was in pieces. That really shattered me and further at that age, and I ended up breaking up with my boyfriend kind of shortly after and leaving New York City because of the overwhelm of it all. And because I was ashamed, I didn't tell him. I felt like I would be blamed, especially that wasn't like the healthiest relationship. And yeah, I thought it was my fault. I mean, that's like such a thing that a lot of people say. It's a very real feeling. I just, yeah,
And that was so deeply ingrained with you ever since you were a child. Everything that happens, it's always your fault. It's always your fault. It's you, nobody else. You're the responsible one. You have to carry the guilt and the shame. And
yeah,
like, there's no, that's a double bind in itself, positioning
yes,
somebody from such a young age to always feel that way if something goes wrong, whether it was their fault or not. So it's
yes,
really sad that happened to you. And,
yes,
I try to think about being young and being offered all these things, especially like before social media. You don't have like ways to
yeah,
connect to see
right,
where corruption happens or to see stories of people being taken advantage of. You just like have
yeah,
stars in your eyes, and you were a
yes,
baby child, so even if you didn't have your
yes,
memories, you
yes,
still were taught to be submissive, to obey, to like go with the flow, to not speak up if something
yes,
happens. And so
yes,
it's like you were the perfect candidate for them to try to take advantage of, and they tried so hard, and they didn't get
yes,
you to sign your soul away and to harm
yes,
somebody. But I wouldn't. I mean, how do you say no when you're with a man? You're all by yourself in his car, and
yeah,
he's saying you need to come to my house. Like, what else are you going to do? Jump out of his car? Like,
right,
he could
right,
have he could have like had a weapon on him or tried to like hurt you
right,
in his car, or like done,
right,
who knows? Like, in that point, it's like survival. You just you try to react to stay safe, and that's not
yeah,
always a rational decision that makes sense on the outside. Like, well, why wouldn't you just say no? Like,
right,
what anybody would have done that with when you're a young girl and you're with an older man in a car. Like,
yeah,
it just
yeah. I
makes sense.
wanted
But it's
to,
easy to like feel guilty and like, oh, why did I do that? I should have done this or that. But
yeah.
like,
It's yes, it is that, and it's also not wanting to disappoint someone further.
right.
Like
And he's a
and so I
celebrity.
had already disappointed him. So I should have like been like, you're crazy. Like you just like offered to like take my friend out, for like me to have a career, and I'm not getting in your car. No fucking way. And instead there was this ingrained programming of what, like feeling like I already had disappointed them. Did I do a good job in the writing session? Um, you know, all those factors, and then like here's this big hot shot like
Exactly.
um, you know, producer that's like world famous and has produced all these hits, and wants to spend time with me, and if I say no, I'm disappointing him. And yeah, there was already this other undercurrent of um yeah, just I mean, this is what the both Hollywood and music industry, uh what feeds the infrastructure and feeds the trauma is that these individual people that maybe come from no fame or no name and come from nothing, in terms of that, wanting to be a part of this empire or this force of nature, and so they use that to their advantage. I mean, yeah,
100%. It's
yeah,
really
it's like,
sad you're put in that position. You're so strong for being able to overcome that, and like all the healing that you've done to be able to talk about that. I mean, in one shape or another, whether it was a celebrity or a boyfriend or just somebody, most women and people have been taken advantage of in that way and have frozen or fawned and sort of like, just had that
Yes.
survival mechanism come on. And that's a big trauma point, I think, for a lot of people. And so thank you for giving
Yeah.
victims of this type of abuse, in any type of way, a voice too, along with all the victims, of and survivors of SRA, MK Ultra. There's a lot of people that go through this type of abuse where they're taken advantage of just in everyday life,
Yeah.
by random
Yeah.
men and women.
Yeah. And I feel for every one of them because yeah, I just know it so well. And anyone who is still going through their own healing journey. I mean, we're always healing. I'm still healing. Like and maybe it's a lifetime, healing is a lifetime experience.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone in the thick of it, yeah, I just want to tell them to keep on untangling and like keep like being diligent about your healing is a really good thing.
Yes.
And like you'll get to a plateau of peace.
Amen to
Uh,
that.
yeah. And I don't expect anything from any of the perpetrators at this point in time. Um, but I hope for their sake, the ones that are not deceased, um, that they come to some kind of confession, rectification, uh, healing, and it I want to say to the perpetrators, like, if any of them are listening, and I'm sure some do listen to your podcast, um, it greatly helps survivors when an abuser comes clean in any way or form that they can, in some kind of apology. Even if it's not fully accepted, it doesn't make any of the action right, or like okay. It does help survivors, because the insult added to injury is to be gaslit on top of the already horrific abuse that we as survivors go through.
And I think even the people that are looked at as more of the conscious people that are choosing to abuse, and there are those people, some people enjoy it genuinely, and they've been created to be a monster because of it. However, I think there's also the aspect of guilt, of even if I were to come clean, I've already committed all this crime, just like how you said,
Yeah.
why some celebrities stay in it, even if
Yeah.
they remember things. But,
Yeah.
Everybody that has come forward, every survivor that has come forward has in some way said that even if it wasn't like my fault and I didn't want to do it, I resisted it. Like, you were all forced to commit crime and to do things that are just horrific. And so it's like, everybody's guilty in that way. If you're looking at it of like, well, I did all this bad stuff. Well, you made your kid do a bunch of bad stuff too. Like, does that make them a criminal? Like,
Right.
just when you can come forward, you become a survivor. Like, we can forgive and not necessarily forget, and it doesn't rectify it, but we can say like, that's amazing that you decided to come forward out of that, despite everything. Like, you guys know more than anything the losses and the gaslighting and how you're treated sometimes coming out of this, and right down to people not believing you. So of course there's like all that, but it's like the relief that it would give survivors just to hear some type of like confession, like you said, rectification, a begging of forgiveness, even, like
Mhm. Yeah.
we,
Yeah, and if you don't do it in human form, like in this reality, you're gonna have to do it with God. So,
100%.
and
Yes,
like maybe,
exactly.
maybe some of those people don't believe in God. Um, yeah, you're not getting out of this like scot-free. Sorry.
Exactly. You might as well just come forward while you're here and try to do the best that you can, and
And at least
fortunately,
do
so few
some
do.
good on this plane. At least do some good for survivors that are like enduring horrible conditions, like in even just remembering what they went through 20 years ago or so. The the
Exactly.
the trauma of remembering is
Right.
it's like, yeah.
It's
So,
horrific.
mhm. It
Yeah.
is.
It's why,
Yeah.
like, you and, everybody else, like, you guys are all so brave, like, for what you've risked and given up and sacrificed. And,
Thank you.
the cost of coming forward and leaving that is so great, even though it's so rewarding once you go through the healing and you realize what you walked away from and how you dodged a bullet, quite literally in a lot of
Mhm.
cases. It's amazing that anybody leaves when you learn about the levels of depravity and dehumanization that they put you through to create loyalty to the evils and the bad that they do ultimately. And so it's really
Mhm.
courageous, and it's amazing to see how far you've come, and even to see like what you've created through this. I don't know if you'd want to take time now to go through some of your music that we were
Oh,
going to share
sure.
in your art.
Yeah, sure.
But it's really neat to see on the other side, you've had these gifts that you were being groomed for,
Yeah.
and you get to use them in your own way now, and
Yeah.
share music that you want to share in a way that's authentic to you. And so
Okay.
what I'll do is I'm going to bring this photo up. And so this
Mm.
is kind of a cover to the song. And do you want to
Yes.
preface the song or talk about it before we play it?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say like I had a painting and AI kind of redesigned it, so I'm sorry that there's one eye on the left. It's not a signal to the Illuminati or something. It's just that's how it came out, and um it can be the all-seeing eye of the real God or whatever. But yeah, nothing breaks in heaven. It's just about um the perfection of a higher place, um, rising above everything that you've gone through uh, in life, and how the spirit is, um, infinite and is the word infallible? I don't want to misuse that word. But is that the word?
Sounds like it could be, yeah. It
Infallible.
makes sense with how
It's
you with how you're using it.
I mean, I just believe that, you know, we we get wounded in our minds and our bodies, and yes, souls can be plagued, but I also believe when we're like purely in our light, we maintain that innocence and purity. And so that song is an expression of that. And the way the song came originally, a lot of my songs come in dreams. I usually will get a melody and a couple lyrics, and then kind of um you know sketch the song out from there. This one was it came in a dream, the melody, and then I started just, I use voice memos to remember that, catch it from the dream, and then like build it out from there. And there's another song that I probably will share on my social media on the Instagram. There's some songs that I need to, you know, change the song covers so that my moniker is on it. But there's another song I wrote called Salvation, and that also came in a dream vision where I was like in the in between, and I saw River Phoenix, the actor, in the dream, and we were in this like, it was kind of like a cloud cave, but it was a holding space. And he said, all I want to do is find a way to get to salvation. And he was sitting at a card table playing cards, and he had like gold teeth. So I actually used some of, there's a lyric in the beginning of Nothing Breaks in Heaven that I used from that dream as well. But most of Salvation is about that dream and the struggle of the soul, you know, coming back to its purity and forgiveness and back to God. I mean, all my songs are kind of about God.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, because that's the ultimate.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
gonna hit
you.
I'm gonna hit play. You let me know if you can't hear it for some
Oh,
reason, okay?
oh, sure.
I've been going to the saints in your dreams, praying that you fall down to your knees, leaving behind the demons you hide. Cast out of heaven in your dirty jeans. Flash me a smile with your gold teeth. Living in this way on imitation faith. Nothing breaks in heaven. We go back to where we came from. Nothing breaks in heaven. We go back to where we came from. Amy is dead, now that is a thread. Never know you're hanging till you lose a friend. She came in a dream, saying everyone is free. She flew so high that she broke the sky.
Nothing breaks in heaven.
Nothing breaks in heaven. We go back to where we came from. Nothing breaks in heaven. We go back to where we came from.
Wow. What an incredibly beautiful song.
Was it enjoyable?
Oh my gosh, it was so incredibly amazing. And whenever I was listening to that earlier, and it just like you literally just sound like an
Oh,
angel, and
oh my
that's
God, thank
just
you.
stunning. You know,
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you're using your gift. You and other survivors, and we'll show a couple pieces of your artwork too. But you
Okay,
know,
cool.
it's like whenever we're young,
Yeah,
we're sort of conditioned once we start going to school that like you only do art and creativity if you're good at it. So you specialize in theater if you can sing, and if you can't sing,
yeah,
you don't ever sing. If
yeah,
you enjoy art but you're not good at it, you probably don't want to be in an art class with other artists. So you just kind of like give up creativity. And like you, Madison, who is also an amazing singer, like how we were talking about earlier, you're an artist as far as you paint and draw as well, and a lot of survivors use that. Writing, you're a brilliant writer, and a lot of survivors write books and have blogs, and you guys are all teaching us like the healing power of creativity, and like how
yes,
much we can put like self-expression and processing and healing, and just seeing like what comes out. And like you're not in a studio, you're not with freaking Linda Perry and Pink and like having this professional experience. Like you're
yeah.
doing this by yourself. This is like your
Yeah.
lyrics,
It
your
is,
music.
yes.
Like it's your voice, you're producing it and putting it out and
Yes.
creating it. And like I'm just blown away at what you created, and then like that you did all
Oh,
this by yourself without
thank
the
you.
help of that pathway that you were supposed to be in. And like
Mm,
you get to choose your
yes,
lyrics. They don't have to be these
yes,
like inverted evil
yeah,
lyrics. And they're
yes.
yours. It's genuinely you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and there's so much more music that wants to come, and so many memos I have of other song ideas. And I was thinking of even training with this woman as a little bit in some opera, because I kind of want to take some of the range like into an operatic
Oh,
place. And I want to do some even more a cappella, sort of sparse instrument, almost a cappella, basically with some sparse
brave.
instrumentation. And I want them to be some of the new songs to be like transmissions, like musical transmissions, a healing. Yeah, I love writing music, and it's nice to write your own and not just give your story away so someone else can use it for their own. Um,
Exactly.
and that was not the only song that I helped to ghostwrite. There was another big artist and it's a big song, but I don't know that I want to go into it just now. But that was, yeah, that happened in a really kind of weird way. Um, and but I feel more resolved in these things. Like I didn't get outside retribution. I didn't get to sue, all the people in that studio to get more money for, but
But you're not a slave like them. Like you're
yes, I'm
out of
not a
that.
slave like them. Yeah.
Your soul isn't tied to the devil like theirs is. They
Right.
might have all the money, and they're
Right.
getting away with committing
Right.
crime on people like you, and I'm sure there's many
Right.
others that they've taken advantage of. But
Right.
you have a clear soul, you're living in truth, and
Yeah,
you
so
can,
I'm the wealthy one, aren't I?
yes, you've broken the chain and they're still chained up. Yes.
Hmm.
And so if it's okay with you, I'll bring up a
Yes.
couple drawings that we're going to share.
Sure. So all of these are whips, like, work in progress. A painting, like they say, is never finished. I don't feel these are really fully close to finished, but just to one of them that you're gonna pull up is an actual seraphim angel that I saw, which yeah, I need it needs more layers.
It's
But
beautiful.
it is the seraphim. I had to look it up what it was, because I literally saw a multiple winged being floating in my room as my head was laying on the pillow, and it was floating towards me. And I had to literally rub my eyes. Like, I was like, what? And it was still there. And as soon I got scared, to be honest, as soon as I got scared and pulled my energy back, it pulled back too and ended up disappearing. So, but like, in the Bible it says fear not, like and they say angels can be a little scary.
Yeah.
I had to look up multiple winged being, my multiple winged and eyes, because it had a bunch of small eyes on the wings. And when I looked it up, it said biblical angel, seraphim.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. I'm excited to see,
Thank you.
the
Yeah.
layers that still continue to come out and layer over it. And we'll have to show it next time you're on where it's
Yeah.
progressed to, but it's
Oh,
stunning right
geez.
now.
Thank you. And it will be for sale because I want to sell my art. I want to keep making art. And, you know, when I sell something, then I can make another. I can make new. And I love to keep creating.
100, and you should, like, this is your hard work, and it's meaningful, and it's you processing and sharing with us, and you
Yeah.
deserve to be able to continue doing it, and you also deserve for us to support you.
Thank
um
you.
like we just said, like, you walked away from all the money you could have made and all the fame, and like, we expect you guys to come forward and tell us all the names and do all this and put your life at risk, and if we're going to ask that, the least we can do is help you guys continue doing what you're doing and protect you with the funds that you need, the resources, the safety and
Mhm.
protection, and that means us stepping up to do things like support your work. And I love that you're going to be selling them.
Thank you. Yay. And can I say one more thing about, I just like, I'm particularly a little like on nervous because of Madison, and like that was an
Shock.
example that could have shut me up more.
Yes.
And in fact it makes me want to speak out more. And I just want to say, if anyone were to try to take me out, there will be serious hell to pay. Like, there's no way. It's just not worth it. Sorry for you.
Yes. Amen. Yes.
Or Emma Catherine, like,
It
sorry,
needs declared.
it will be a battalion of, you know, angels revenge. You don't want that. On the
Yes.
light side, you don't. No.
Yes.
Yeah. Archangel Michael and his sword, and Yeshua, Jesus. Yeah. Um,
Yes.
yeah. This one is kind of, I don't know. That one I did more with my heart. I just felt into the painting of what, like, my heart wanted to, like, pull out onto the
Put out.
canvas. But it's not finished. It needs more. It will get more.
The detail and the shading, I love all the different colors and how there's so many colors in here, but they blend so well. You almost have to like look really close to see that there's so many colors mixed into it. And the shading is just beautiful, and the details, and where you chose to use like hard lines versus where you blended really softly. There's so much talent that you can see, like so many different skills that you put into this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I only had some like formal painting classes, like training in college, and then I just was like, I know how to paint the apple. I just want to do my abstract thing and like feel on the canvas.
And for people listening, we shared one song of many that Magnolia has. However, if you guys enjoy that song, I'm going to have a link for it in the show notes. You guys can go check it out and listen to it on repeat, like how I want to with all of her music.
Oh,
And of course, if we have other songs that are out that we can publish under Magnolia Dove, I'll have those as well. That way you guys can go stream those as well. But either way, I would encourage you guys just to follow Magnolia's journey and to, share the concepts and the music and the social media that she does have out now under that name, and, be there. We need to create armies for survivors and to help support them. And easy, free way to do that, besides supporting their work, is following them and sharing their music and sharing their art, and just getting on board, being the army that they didn't have growing up, and it helps keep them safe. Believe it or not, they're speaking out, and there's tons of people following them and keeping an eye out and commenting and sharing and supporting. It makes the enemy have a lot harder time to have access to do anything to them, because they're not isolated and alone like how they want them to be. So it really helps if you guys are helping stream music and sharing it and bringing awareness, and of course it's really wholesome, wonderful stuff that you're not going to hear on the radio. So we'll have that link below.
Thank you. Yeah, and if there's any like experienced producers that would want to long distance produce, like create tracks together, I could be open to collaboration like that. And then, just pop into a local studio to get the actual recording done, which I'm pretty efficient in a recording studio. Like,
Oh, that would be amazing.
cutting vocals. Yeah, I'm always like, if it's creatively aligned, yeah, I love
And if
working on music.
people want to follow you or connect with you elsewhere, privately or on social media, are you available, or do you have any accounts anywhere that people can connect with you?
I have the Magnolia Dove 777 right now. I have my own personal, which is a bigger following, but I'm not ready yet for that. But in the future, possibly.
And I'll share this
for
one real quick, just so that way people who are watching the video can see. So Magnolia Dove does have an Instagram, and you guys can follow her there. Magnolia Dove, just like she said, 777. And if you guys follow, you guys can reach out through DMs. And of course, if you guys want to share something, or if you don't have Instagram, my emails as well are below. And if you guys email me, I will forward it on to Magnolia and make sure that she gets it. And you guys can start a correspondence that way if she sees fit. But I would definitely take advantage of supporting on social media, and go down in the links. And the last thing I wanted to say too, regarding how people can support, you have a GoFundMe, and so if you want to talk a little bit about that, we'll have that too. But those funds will go as well towards supporting Magnolia's mission too.
Okay, yeah, so that's something that I'm creating, and it would just be to help, like, I'm still healing. I still support other people in their healing. I'm in touch with several survivors that I work with them for not a lot of money, really. It's like whatever they can pay. It's like donation. And it's just to help people heal, but I'm also, living in a house with bills that are racking up, and I don't, it's just, if you feel called, it helps so that I can live and not be in like high survival, so that I also have time to create more art, more music. Yeah. So again, only if you feel inclined. That also is going to be set up. And I know that I need to work more on my Instagram. The Magnolia Dove one needs a little more attention, so I'm going to work on putting some things together there.
Yay! And if you guys are interested in her art too, please keep in touch. That way, whenever they do go for sale and they're available, you guys can sort of be on the cutting edge and the forefront of being the first that can go purchase. So you guys can, again, follow her on Instagram, support her through her music, and of course, please donate if you guys, like she said, feel called. It's the best way you guys can use your money if you want to support this movement. A lot of people are already supporting nonprofits and then being like, oh, well, they're corrupt. What do I do with this money that I would have been giving to somebody? And, just giving directly to survivors goes such a long way. So we'll have the GoFundMe below as well.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say is, like, I'm in touch with one survivor who's just coming to terms with some of his SRA, and he's living in his car. He lives in his van, and I help him, and in ways that I can,
Yeah.
uh, with some healing work, and just even like little jobs that I need help that I can't do. I'll pay what I can, and so uh, I believe in paying it forward is what I'm saying. Like,
You're such an
um,
angel. You have all
I
this
mean,
that you just shared, and you give your heart and open up your arms to other people and in need, and it just shows so much about your character and your spirit and your integrity and your heart. Thank you for all that you're doing for the community behind the scenes,
aw,
even for
thank
Madison.
you. Yeah, I feel behind. I'm behind the scenes, but I'm definitely on the force for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And I just, again, like, thank you so much for the work that you do, that you continue to do so bravely and like undeterred. And like, we need you. We need you.
It's my honor. I'm so grateful I get to, and there's no greater cause in the world. I hope more people and more people continue to see the importance of it and find ways in their own life that they can support, and donate their own skills and time and however it is to helping this mission. So thank you so much for sharing. And was there anything else that you wanted to share today? Did we get to everything?
I feel we really covered a lot.
We did.
It feels pretty complete. And I would love to do a part 3 at some point.
Yay! Me
Yeah.
too. Me
Yeah.
too.
Thank you.
So if you guys listening have any questions, leave them in the comments, or of course you guys can reach out to us and ask for a part 3 so we can answer maybe some of your questions as well. But go down the show notes and connect with Magnolia, support her music, social media, GoFundMe, and all my links will be down there below. So thank you guys so much for listening. God bless you
Thank
all, and we will see you next time.